There is a watch website that raised $40 million in a single funding round, was valued at over $100 million, and took money from the French conglomerate that owns Hublot, Tag Heuer, Zenith, Bulgari, and Tiffany. Its backers included a 6-time Super Bowl champion, a Grammy-winning musician, and the inventor of the iPod. It was started in 2008 by a Columbia journalism student in his dorm room during a recession on a laptop he kept at UBS before the bank told him he had 6 months. His name was pulled from a Czech word for wristwatch, chosen to sound ridiculous. In 15 years, it went from 0 readers to the most trusted editorial voice in watches, to laying off nearly a fifth of its staff, and to selling itself to a British retailer. This is the story of Hodinkee, and the part I am still not sure how to explain is why the largest luxury conglomerate on earth quietly bought a seat at the table of the people writing about its watches. My name is Lucas, and let's take a look at how the most trusted voice in watches ended up working for the people it was supposed to review. To understand how a dorm room blog ended up on the cap table of a Paris luxury conglomerate, you have to understand what watch journalism looked like before 2008, and what it looked like was captured. Print magazines depended almost entirely on Swiss advertising. Writers attended Geneva junkets on the brand's dime. Reviews were long-form press releases with better fonts. Nobody asked hard questions about pricing, scarcity, or retail allocation because the entire business model was built on not asking. Into that world, in the fall of 2008, walks Ben Clymer, Columbia journalism student, previously at UBS, told he had 6 months. The recession, Clymer later said, came as a relief. He started a blog. He named it Hodinkee, from the Czech word for wristwatch, chosen because the watch industry took itself way too seriously, and he wanted a name that sounded absurd on purpose. For its first 4 years, Hodinkee was exactly what the Swiss industry had no defense against. Pure editorial. No ad dependency, no junkets, no relationships to protect. Just a kid who loved watches writing long, nerdy, historically literate pieces for other people who loved watches. By 2012, Clymer had turned down a Forbes lifestyle writer job because his blog was out earning what Forbes would have paid him. That meant the traditional watch journalism economy had already died. The insight came in 2012 when Clymer launched an e-commerce platform on Shopify. The blog was not just a magazine, it was a distribution channel. Watches sold through Hodinkee created direct brand relationships pure editorial could never access. By 2013, Time named Hodinkee one of the 50 best websites on the internet, the first watch publication ever to crack that list. But that was the last moment Hodinkee was just a publication. The people Clymer was writing about had started to notice. The first real move came in 2015 with the Watchville merger. Watchville was a news aggregation app built by Kevin Rose, the Dig founder, who saw the same opportunity Clymer did. They merged. Rose became CEO, and Hodinkee stopped being a blog and started becoming a platform. Over the next 5 years, the growth was staggering. By 2019, the staff had reached 88 people. A Japanese edition launched with Hearst Fujin Gaho. Brand collaborations rolled out, including a ceramic and titanium IWC pilot's watch limited to 500 units, a Leica M10P Ghost Edition, a Seiko Alpinist reissue, and in December 2020, a G-Shock 6900 designed by John Mayer with Casio. Instagram passed 670,000 followers, larger than most national watch magazines have ever had in print. YouTube traffic hit 80,000 views per day. By 2020, Hodinkee was an authorized retailer for roughly 40 brands, simultaneously a newsroom, a store, and a wholesale partner. This is the same editorial to commerce Pivot Food 52 and Eater ran in food media a decade earlier. Then came December 2020. Hodinkee closed a $40 million Series B that valued the company at roughly $100 million, according to Forbes. Lead investor was TCG, the Chernin Group investment arm. Participating investors included True Ventures, Tony Fadell's Future Shape, Google Ventures, Tom Brady, and John Mayer. Toby Bateman, former managing director of Mr. Porter, was named Chief Executive Officer. Clymer stepped aside to become executive chairman. When I first saw Tom Brady's name, I thought that was the most unlikely thing about the round. I was wrong about which investor mattered, because there was a name on that list I have not said out loud yet. And that name is the part the watch press, remarkably, did not stop to unpack. Which brings us to LVMH. This is not a watch company. This is a 75-brand luxury empire with over $80 billion in annual revenue. The investor was LVMH Luxury Ventures, the group's minority stake investment arm. LVMH owns Tag Heuer, it owns Hublot, it owns Zenith, it owns Bulgari, it owns Tiffany. All 5 brands were actively covered, reviewed, and in some cases sold by Hodinkee. The conglomerate funding the publication was, at the same moment, one of the largest houses whose watches appeared in its editorial coverage, and the watch media response was almost silent. The cleanest summary is in the Wikipedia entry, which flatly states that because Hodinkee partners with brands it both reviews and sells, and because it is financed partly by the largest luxury brand owner in the world, some industry writers have suggested editorial integrity could be compromised. If the publication you trusted most, about a $10,000 purchase, was partly owned by the company that made the watch, when would they tell you? Everything that followed reads like a textbook second act unwinding. February 2021, Hodinkee acquired Crown and Caliber. 2022, the post-pandemic watch bubble popped. Rolex and Patek secondary market prices collapsed. Jeffrey Fowler, a Farfetch veteran, replaced Bateman as chief executive officer. September 2023, roughly a 20% staff cut. April 2024, further layoffs. October 2024, Watches of Switzerland, a British retailer with over 220 stores, acquired Hodinkee for an undisclosed sum. Staff went from 88 to roughly 35. Crown and Caliber was sold to European Watch Company. This is the exact arc Vice Media, BuzzFeed News, and Jezebel all ran a decade earlier. Hodinkee, in 2024, is now owned by a watch retailer. Before that, it was partly owned by the largest watch conglomerate on Earth. The publication that pulled the curtain back on the watch industry is now structurally a department of that industry. Here is what the Hodinkee story is actually about. It is not about one publication. It is about what happens to every independent voice in every industry the moment that voice gets big enough to be worth captured. You have seen this happen in food media, in fashion blogging, in tech reviewing, in crypto commentary, in wellness content, and in beauty YouTube. The pattern is always the same. Someone builds a voice that nobody inside the industry trusts. That voice gets big. The industry offers money, access, partnerships, ambassador contracts, board seats, and investment rounds. The voice takes the offers, often for reasons you can understand. And then, a year or two later, you notice the reviews stopped being quite so sharp about a few specific brands. The watches that got the glossy, long-form profiles were from the same houses that made the limited edition collaborations. The criticisms got softer, the superlatives got looser, and you cannot prove that a single sentence was ever fabricated. Nothing was technically a lie. You just know the water got murky somewhere along the way, and trust was eroded. The problem was never that the influencers were lying. The problem was that somewhere between the dorm room blog and the Paris conference room, the word independent had quietly changed definition, and nobody bothered to tell the readers. So I'm genuinely curious. Have you ever bought a watch or anything because a reviewer you trusted swore it was the best? Have you ever looked back and wondered whether they were playing a slightly different game than you thought they were? Let me know in the comments below.